Welcome to the OnlyFans Secrets Marketing Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to help both new and established OnlyFans creators learn the basics of online branding, marketing, and promotion to help you make more money with your content and maximize your time online. My name is Richard Lewis, and I have over 20 years of internet marketing experience. So let's get started with today's topic. And that topic is Sunday Secret 6, answering listeners' OnlyFans questions. All right, so I am once again dedicating our Sunday episode to answering users' OnlyFans questions. So let's get right into the questions. A user in Boston, Massachusetts asks, what are your thoughts on using Kik? I have a lot of requests for this app to go off of OnlyFans. Is it safe? Okay, so of course you should be careful, off of OnlyFans. Now, many users like the anonymity of Kik because, it's more private. So if people don't necessarily want to give their information on OnlyFans, then they're able to go on to Kik, which is, a good platform for them to do that and for you to be able to sell content. So just be aware that they can save your material and it's not covered by OnlyFans legal rights. As I've mentioned before, you want to make sure to watermark your content. But, Kik is a good place to market and to sell to those people who might not necessarily want to buy directly on OnlyFans. As far as its safety, it's a legitimate app. Now, how you use it is up to you, but I would say that it isn't, entirely sketchy that someone would want to just be on Kik. But just make sure that they give you, legitimate information as far as paying. And, as I mentioned, make sure to protect your, legal rights with a watermark. All right, so a user in San Francisco, California asks, I get a report on my top 1% and 5% of fans every month from OnlyFans. What is OnlyFans using to determine this number? Okay, so this is how active your subscribers are with you. So this would be their likes and comments. This is not how much they tip or how much money they give you. So it's not listed by, who is spending the most money on you. They are just congregating the activity from that specific subscriber. So if it's just someone who's very active, and clicking, commenting, talking to you, that person is going to end up in your top 1%, and 5% of fans each month or for a specific month. So it's not an exact determinant of, success monetarily with that subscriber. So that's how they are determining that. Okay, so a user in Puyallup, Washington asks, I've built my Reddit followers up to 2,000, but I'm still not getting a lot of traction there. What is a good conversion rate for that site? Okay, so honestly, from asking different creators, I've been told that a rate of 2% or less conversion is normal. And I will say that Reddit is one of the harder sites to reach users' eyeballs. So you can imagine that if someone is following you, they are also likely following a lot of different subreddits that, they're getting constantly inundated with pictures. So even though they're following you, which is good, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, if they're following your profile, the pictures that you post in your profile are going to end up on their feed. But again, they're seeing so much that it's going to be hard to get through to them. So certainly if they see enough of your pictures on your profile, it's possible that they start to interact. I've definitely seen people who post a ton to their profile. That way people are consistently seeing their pictures. So I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing if you're posting maybe the same picture, every day, especially if it's a good picture to your profile, so that it's getting in the mind of your potential subscriber so that they are seeing you consistently. Again, unlike a lot of other social networks, it's hard to spam your own Reddit profile. Again, you're not going to have any problem with that because it's your profile. So, if you were to do this in a subreddit, like you were to, keep posting the same picture in a subreddit on Reddit, you might have a problem. So definitely you want to post as much as possible into your profile so that you can get in front of, this person who's now following you's, eyes. Now, I would say, 2,000 is great, and it sounds like a good number on any other social network, but for a Reddit, again, because of just the way that people are seeing the material, you might want to just continue to build that up, possibly to 10,000 if you can get there. That's a lot of people, but again, because the conversion rate ends up being pretty low, you're going to end up having to attract a lot of people who are seeing your content. So in many ways, Reddit is a double-edged sword because it requires a lot of people who are seeing your content. Okay, so a user in Saginaw, Michigan asks, what are some easy ways to spot scam accounts on Twitter and Instagram? And this is a great question. So overall, what you want to do is you want to look at the likes and interaction first on the account. So, how much, like if someone has posted, like if they posted a previous promo, how much interaction did it get? Now, you also want to open up the retweets and see if, again, these accounts look legitimate. I've seen a lot of people create bogus accounts that they just end up retweeting their own self. And you can kind of tell that these are bogus accounts because they all kind of have the same feel, the same kind of picture. And again, you could click on those accounts and see and say, okay, yeah, this is just this person in this promo retweeting or posting, again, on different Instagram accounts or wherever you are, the same material. You'll definitely be able to see this. And obviously, the follower count is important. And as I mentioned before, you want to look and see, okay, how many followers does this account actually have? And as I've mentioned, on Instagram, numbers mean nothing. So, someone can have 1 million followers and it not necessarily lead to anything. It's especially look at the likes on Instagram. So if somebody has 500,000 followers, they posted something yesterday and you're not seeing any likes there, that's a problem. And another thing that scammers tend to do is they use video or features on Instagram that don't allow for you to see the actual count. So, things where people can't necessarily like or where it's more about the view count, so that you can't really tell, okay, there's not a lot of real interaction going on here. So if you see someone basically posting in a way that doesn't allow likes at all, that's a red flag because it's probably so that you can't tell that no one's really liking their material. And, similarly on Twitter, if you have, as I mentioned, like accounts that are just retweeting themselves, or the follower count just doesn't seem to add up with the amount of interaction that's coming back off of, the tweets, that's a problem. And as I mentioned before, you want to look at the start date. So if you have a start date of, 2015, for instance, now this could be a repurposed account. And so, again, it could be fine. But if you have, start dates at 2009 before there even was an OnlyFans, or farther back, again, that is going to be a big red flag. So, it doesn't discount it, but now you want to make sure that it's backed up with actual interaction on Twitter. So those are big red flags. And primarily the people who are buying OnlyFans accounts are in the English language. So if you notice that the account does not have a good grasp of English, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but if they're trying to tell you they are going to promote you, you're Canadian or you're in the UK or in the United States, and the person is obviously not from, an English speaking country, that can be a red flag. Again, they could have a huge audience in whatever country that they are in, so it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but it kind of can be a little bit of a warning that you want to check some other things, especially if you're seeing them pretend to be able to master the English language, but then have, words misspelled throughout, their profile. It could be, a fake account where they're just trying to look like they're in the United States or in an English-speaking country, but they're not. Again, big red flag. There are countries that OnlyFans itself doesn't, necessarily want to accept money from, because there's so much scamming that goes on in some of those countries, as far as payments are concerned. So there's some, quick tips as far as being able to spot a scam. Okay, so a user in Tampa, Florida asks, what small platforms do you recommend for promoting on OnlyFans? All right, so I do plan on having an episode of the podcast about smaller platforms, especially ones, up and coming. But right now, people are having success with apps such as Whisper, sites like FetLife, and Telegram, Clapper is another one. It's a small one, but one that people have had some success with. There's so many of them, so it's hard to list all of them here. But, again, you want to constantly be looking for new opportunities. So, starting an account, maybe you don't have time right now to really work some of these, but just getting on, smaller accounts and getting a feel for them and saying, okay, well, how does this work? And if I have some extra time, I'll come back to this. But I'll go ahead and do an episode about all these small platforms and in the future, and that way you'll be able to determine which ones might be best for you. Okay, so lastly, a user in Austin, Texas asks, can I be permanently shadow banned? And how do I get out of it if I am? Okay, so sadly, although online Twitter states, 2 to 7 day bans, or 48 hours, etc., I have heard of shadow bans lasting months. This is an issue that people encounter a lot, especially OnlyFans creators. And usually there's not a lot of response. So, you're not going to get a lot of response on your profile if you write Twitter and say, why am I shadow banned? We had a whole episode about preventing bans on different social media platforms, so feel free to check that one out. That way you don't necessarily have that problem. We went over, not using excessive hashtags and a lot of other things in that episode. But I do plan to have a whole episode on shadow ban misinformation in the future as well, because I've been encountering a lot of people who have been saying a lot of things I don't think are correct online, kind of using shadow ban as like a lure, which, I don't like an information lure, like how to solve shadow bans. And in most cases, they're not even able to solve these shadow bans. And they're trying to tell you that things are shadow bans that aren't shadow bans, or different types. And, for those who aren't familiar, a shadow ban is where you are posting and you don't know that people are not necessarily seeing your posts, and might not be seeing them in search results, or they might not be seeing them even if they are following you, which is a huge problem. Obviously, you put the time in to post something and you make the assumption that people are actively looking at it, and they're not.